let's just look at hypnosis. Minefields College and Joe's work drew us to an understanding of what hypnosis is. The first scientific explanation for what hypnosis is. There is no other. If you actually read the number of books on hypnosis that Joe and I have read, and many of you have read, just know there is not really a scientific explanation for what's going on in hypnosis. Just as there isn't a scientific explanation for what schizophrenia is. Just isn't. But now we know, and we've boiled it all down to, it's any artificial means of accessing the REM state. That is the highest form of understanding you can have about what hypnosis is. Once you really understand that, the whole thing becomes clearer and clearer what's going on in trance state. And the easier it is for you to pare down what you do and cut out the rigmarole and mumbo-jumbo associated with so much hypnotic training and NLP training, and do things in a purer, more direct, more straightforward way. Now, we're saying that any artificial means of accessing the REM state, one of the most common is, of course, firing the orientation response. That's a huge amount. If you can go on the internet and see endless YouTube films of people firing the orientation response and putting people into trance. And of course, and in that state, when it's a deep, sudden induction like that, you're actually making somebody highly programmable, and you're transgressing someone's personality. Obviously, the word hypnosis wasn't coined until the century before last. But we're referring to a hypnotic-like phenomenon, to be technically correct, because they didn't use the term hypnosis. But where we can see now with our understanding that hypnosis is to do with accessing the REM state, what was going on. Now, the first known sleep temples were in Egypt over 4,000 years ago. They were hospitals of sorts, so the people went there to be healed of various ailments. And the evidence seems to show that they involved chanting, placing the patient in trance-like or hypnotic states, and also they studied people's dreams in order to determine treatment. And this was taken up in a very big way in ancient Greece. A similar sort of process went on in Jewish traditions as well. And a Roman sleep temple was unearthed in Gloucestershire in 1928, and J.R.R. Tolkien was one of the people working on that site out of interest. That's a bit of one of those irrelevant facts you don't really need to spend time thinking about. And here are some ancient hypnotic inductions that have been recorded all around the world, and some are more modern ones and have been adapted in modern times. Wearing masks puts people into a trance state. You're separated from yourself. Something odd happens to you. If you go to a masked ball, or Venice or somewhere where they're wearing masks and so on, you're a different person when you put a mask on and dress up. So that's a very ancient technique for inducing trance states. Dancing and drumming, of course, you see that all over the world, induces trance states in people and is part of healing ceremonies all over the world. Clapping and chanting induces trance states. I mean, this just scraps the surface. I mean, there's lots more. Manipulating breathing, of course. Tapping and beating, ancient technique. Pummeling people, like that's what it means, not beating them up, but pummeling. Massage and stroking. There's a Valentine Greatrakes, there was a great Irish healer. He used to stroke people and put them into profound trances. He became very much sought after. Giving sudden commands to people. Suddenly having an order shouted at you, you just jump and you do it. No questions. That's an ancient technique. Staring into people's eyes. Raising expectancy. All these forms of hypnotic inductions really are set in cultural expectations. If it's normal behaviour, I mean, for example, if you went to your GP surgery to be treated for something and you had to take your family along, and everybody in the surgery had to dance around you and clap and do all this kind of thing, it wouldn't be appropriate because that's not our context. But if you went to a witch doctor, the whole village would expect to turn out, and the drumming team and everything, and they'd be all working with you. But it's all these techniques are culturally specific. So raising expectancy is what that's about. People expect something to happen. And these are culture-bound suggestions. Humiliation and abasement have been used, and that's used to this day by cults and so on. When someone goes into the REM state, when they're asleep, you start talking to them. And again, if you're sincere and a good person, you can cure people like that, but you can also abuse people like that, of course. That's an ancient technique. Echoing rhythmic movement is also a technique that was developed in the East and used a lot. Talking quietly. Administering sudden shock, which is the firing the orientation response, as we saw earlier. Using bright lights. People have used that going back to the ancient Greeks, sort of focusing lights on people. A Parisian doctor, he used to get tremendous results using revolving mirrors. Sensory deprivation puts people into a trance. Making passes, moving hands over people like that, but not touching them, but doing passes of one sort or another puts people into a trance. Focusing attention strongly on anything, as we all know, is the art of what you focus someone's attention, they go into trance. That's a benign approach into doing it that you can use. You don't need drums or chanting or clapping to do that. You can just do it in conversation. Repetition of phrases, chanting, prayers, etc., etc. Entering strange buildings. An awful lot of what are now regarded as very powerful religious buildings were actually trance-inducing machines. And if you think about, we're overloaded with sensory information, but even now you can go into a great cathedral or one beautiful mosque or something, and it has an effect on you, doesn't it? Imagine the effect in days when people just lived mainly in sort of mud and wattle huts and so on, of going into a building that beautiful and that grand and that symbolic. It would just put them into a different state of consciousness. Focusing on patterns. Fractional technique, that in fact was done, I think I've got a film of that being done, where you put someone into a trance and you take them out, and then within half a minute or so you put them back in, you take them out, you put them back in, you take them out. They go deeper and deeper and deeper into a trance state. One guy built up a reputation in earlier times when we weren't so familiar with metals and strange substances, and he would touch them on people's skins, and that would make them go into a trance state because it's such an unusual surface. And I'm sure you've all felt yourself, if you touch something and it's really odd, it focuses your attention. Forced water immersion, beloved of the American military, apparently. Mass hypnosis via individuals. So this is a technique that Hitler used. There's another really ancient technique, which probably does go right the way back to the Egyptians and so forth, is that you put somebody into a profound trance, but then you don't talk to them. You talk to the other people in the room and you say, this man is now cured, he will never suffer X, Y, Z, and from this day forth he will go forth, and all the things that a healthy person would do. And they used to come out of this trance, but the suggestions are given to other people in the room talking about this person, and apparently that was very powerful.